It's Friday, November 10th, 2017. It's that time of the hour for your favorite NFL and college football program. Welcome to Week 10 and the Veterans Day edition of the Blitz Zone. Hi, everybody. I'm coming to you from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York. I'm your host, Eric Rosen. Before we begin tonight's show of football and all football news, I just want to dedicate this show to the military, to the United States Armed Forces, and all the men and women who have served in our armed forces, from currently or in years past, who have done nothing but given their lives and the ultimate sacrifice for the love, security, and prosperity of their country, the United States of America. These people I admire so much. And I admire their families for the sacrifice that they have to make as well. And I admire these people who just every day go on and are doing what they always do, and that's just are selfless, great human beings. And I know I'm rambling on, but truly I have nothing but the utmost respect. And every time that anybody sees a person in the military, if they have a veteran's hat or if they're wearing a uniform, I really truly believe that they love this. Go up to a soldier and say, and this is what we should always, thank you for your service. Thank you for protecting me, for protecting my life and letting me live the life that I have in this country. It's because of you I get to do what I love every day. I get to go to work. I get to be with my family because of your sacrifice, because of your strength, your conviction, your courage, and all the intangibles that make you such a great human being, a selfless, amazing human being. And I just, several people I want to dedicate this show to. A remarkable family that I know of from my acting group, the Staten Island Academy of Performing Arts. I of course, Elise DeSimone, who has 7 kids, and the majority of her children have served in the military and have given that ultimate sacrifice, like Michael Biggins, who is a U.S. Army Sergeant, Carl DeSimone, U.S. Marine Corps, Francesca DeSimone, U.S. Army Sergeant, Francis DeSimone, a U.S. Army Sergeant, Lucia DeSimone, a U.S. Marine Sergeant, and also another member of my group, Jennifer Maggieri. Her father, Gaetano Maggieri, was in the U.S. Army. Stephen Sposito, who is the husband of my coworker Eden too, James Sposito, was a U.S. Army Sergeant. And, of course, my Uncle Erwin, who was a U.S. Navy Air Force pilot during World War I. My Uncle Ellie Ellis Kamlitz, who was in the Navy during Vietnam. My late grandfather, George Notarius, who served as a military cook and was involved in the Battle of the Bulge. My other grandfather, Al Rosen, who was a military policeman stationed in France during World War II. And again, Uncle Erwin, who, by the way, that's who my mother was named after, my great Uncle Erwin, who fought in the European theater and was shot down by the Nazis, giving his life in his 20s for this country during a very pivotal time in our history. And I'm reminded of his sacrifice and his courage every day when I look at his Purple Heart. So for men like him and for the men and women like Erwin, all the other people I mentioned, my hat is off to you. My love and my respect is off to you. And I'm honored to know people like that. So again, if you see anybody during this coming weekend, go up to them, shake their hand. Thank you for your service. You are what makes this country so great. And that's all I have to say on that. And just my hat's off to all these people: Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, and the SEALs, and probably another branch that I just forgot. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry about that. And I feel that. Anyway, now on to football. As you know, there's been a lot of news lately with the NFL. The saga that is Ezekiel Elliott is still continuing on. I will find more information out later on or sometime in the next coming week of what's going on with the not only one but two but three stays that he's received from him and from the court system given to him and the NFL Players Association in the 6-game suspension saga that has been going on throughout the entire season since August. Either one of two things will happen. He'll get an injunction by the Court of Appeals and be able to play the rest of the year, or he'll have to immediately serve that 6-game suspension that could hurt the Dallas Cowboys. So something will come of this. For the Cowboys, of course, they hope he doesn't get suspended, considering he had a 93-yard performance on the ground this past week when they won 28-17 over the Chiefs. At the same time, Roger Goodell needs to save face and have this suspension happen, just like last year with Tom Brady's Deflategate suspension that he took early in the season, though. And then he came back with a vengeance, especially the first week in 2016 against Cleveland, who regretted the fact that they had to play Brady after he came out of his suspension like an animal who was locked up in a cage ready to pounce on his prey. This time, though, I don't know if that will be the same case with Ezekiel. That could really hamper him this late into the season. But we'll see what happens. Speaking of the Cleveland Browns and how bad they truly are, there's another man who just admitted during his time with the Cleveland Browns, every game he had played for them, he was either consuming alcohol or drugs. Really, and this has been going on since the 7th grade and through college, and every game in 2013. Especially when he led the league in receiving. I remember that year he had over 1,600 yards that season when he came out of the Baylor in the supplemental draft. I'm just very shocked to hear this. But this was something that was just bothering him. This is one of the demons of his past that he just wanted to admit to and get off his shoulder. I'm hoping that he got the help he needed, that he's no longer on this self-destructive path, and that he's on the path of righteousness, and that he is finally he's trying to help himself and not just want to play in the league, but truly help his own self by getting to a place where he doesn't need either of those substances, where he can just live a full functioning life and not destroy himself. And I'm hoping that if he does get back to the league, that the fans will maybe show him some level of forgiveness and realize that he made a mistake and that he's seeking help. Now, in some other news that took place, Mike Evans, the wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last week, of course, Tampa Bay lost 30-10 in embarrassing fashion, and unfortunately, Jameis Winston got injured and is now out for the next, not just this week upcoming against the Jets, but the following week as well, when they have to play the Miami Dolphins. Anyway, even though Jameis Winston was out of the game, he decided to poke Marshawn Lattimore in the back of the head. Marshawn took acceptance and shoved Winston. Mike Evans, the receiver and teammate of Winston for the Buccaneers, didn't like what Marshawn Lattimore did, so he decided to get a nice little unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and blasting Marshawn Lattimore and basically leveling him on the floor. And what does Mike Evans get for this? And deservedly so, by the way. He gets a 1-game suspension, so Mike will not even be able to play this week for the receiving corps of the Buccaneers when they had the Jets coming to town. So the Bucs are going to be without Jameis Winston and Mike Evans on offense. As if things are not bad enough for the Buccaneers already, it just got worse. And some other news, Jerry Jones hired the same attorney that was with the Players Union during the collective bargaining agreement and disagreement in 2011 with the owners, who's now representing the his name is just, it's really hard to, okay, the guy's representing Harvey not Firestein, did I say that? Weinstein. I know, different Harvey, but nonetheless, in the cases of sexual harassment that has been going on with him stretching 20, 30 years in Hollywood. Yep, Jerry Jones is hiring that same lawyer to help him prevent the compensation committee of the NFL, which is comprised of 6 owners, from handing a contract extension to our current commissioner, Roger Goodell. The same commissioner who has been in the league, I believe, since early 2000s, who has made over $200 million in compensation altogether, and who has an annual contract between $35 and $45 million annually. But yet, Jerry Jones' contention with Roger is that Roger hasn't done a good job in terms of the Ezekiel Elliott situation, which is not a surprise to hear that from Jerry Jones because Jerry owns Cowboys and Ezekiel is one of his players. So he'll defend his players to the death, even if whether they did something right or wrong. That's the one thing you got to know about Jerry Jones. He will go to bat for his players, especially his star players. He doesn't like how he handled the concussion situation, the national anthem, and the kneeling situation that has taken place throughout the season as well. That's what Jerry Jones is contending, which has been reported on Outside the Lines, an ESPN show that Bob Lay is the host of and has done brilliantly for years. Let's see what plays out in this situation, but that's what's going on right now in terms of all the news. Now let's go into the week. That was week 9 of the National Football League starting, and I need a little drink right now before I do that. Refreshing. Very refreshing. Awesome to have some Snapple. Now, the first game going into week 9 we're going to talk about, the Redskins visiting the Seahawks in the Emerald City. At the time, the Seahawks couldn't get much going in terms of offense or touchdowns until, with about a minute 34 left in the game, that Russell Wilson engineers what looked like the game-winning drive, concluding with a 30-yard touchdown pass to Doug Baldwin, making it 14-10. So the Redskins get the ball back with a minute 34 and at their own 30-yard line. So what does Kirk Cousins do? Because unfortunately in this day he couldn't get much going offensively. He gets a 31-yard, two 30-plus yard passes, a 31-yarder to Brian Quick, and then the 38-yard pass to Josh Doxson, the second-year player at TCU, who's been a really good receiving weapon since he came out of college. And he gets it to the Seattle 1 with about – he gets the ball to the Seattle 1 with about a minute 2 left, and it concludes with a 1-yard rushing touchdown by Rob Kelly, making it 17-14. You think it's over, of course, especially with less than a minute to go, and you got a guy by the name of Russell Wilson who can engineer game-winning drives with – even that little amount of time. He tries to get a ball to both Jimmy Graham in the end zone as well as Tanner McAvoy, who was a former player at Wisconsin. Neither of them could get the ball in the end zone. Washington wins a huge stunner in the Emerald City, 17-14. The Oakland Raiders, coming into this game against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday night, were losers of 5 of their last 6 games, including an embarrassing game in Buffalo Week 8. They go into Miami Week 9. Carr has his 3rd straight 300-yard performance, including some big touchdown plays. And one of my favorite was the John Holden for a 44-yard touchdown. The Raiders beat the Miami Dolphins 27-24. Good to see that the Dolphins can actually get rushing touchdowns. Going into this game, the Dolphins were one of the only teams, I believe, in the league that had no rushing touchdowns, and they finally were able to get a few. And Kenyon Drake, despite one of the fumbles he had in the game, for the most part, he's going to be a good, reliable number 1 running back in place of Ajayi, who got traded at the October 31st deadline to the Eagles. So, but congratulations to the Raiders. This is their second win in seven games, but still, they needed this victory in the worst way, winning 27-24. And Jay Cutler having a career day, having over 300 yards passing, and not turning the ball over. That's something for Jay Cutler. Oh, and the Raiders were able to convert 8 of 15 on 3rd down. All right, now going to the next game. The Chiefs visiting the Cowboys. The Cowboys, with Ezekiel Elliott yet again, who had a 2-yard plunge in the 3rd quarter. And here's the crazy part. The Chiefs were down 14-13 towards the end of the first half, and Tyreek Hill gets this crazy catch, eludes a few defenders, going to the end zone, making it 14-10 going into the second half. Then at the beginning of the second half, the Chiefs get the ball, and it concludes with a Travis Kelce touchdown, making it 17-14, and a potato sack race celebration. If you watched YouTube, it was one of the funniest things to ever see. Probably one of my favorite moments of the game. But my absolute favorite is watching Terrence Williams having career-high 9 catches for $156 yards, and the Cowboys end up winning 28-17. Arizona Cardinals and 49ers, two NFC West teams going up against each other. Adrian Peterson, a career day with 37 carries for 159 yards, including a 48-yard rushing touchdown. And Drew Stanton, in his first start on the season, replacing Carson Palmer, who unfortunately is out for the year with a shoulder injury. Well, went 15 for 30, 201 yards, and 2 touchdowns to both Jaron Brown and Jermaine Gresham. The Cardinals beat the hapless, winless 49ers 20-10. C.J. Beathard, 46 times he's been knocked on the ground in the last 4 games since he's been the quarterback. Something has to give. Either him continuing getting battered from the offensive line or going to Jimmy Garoppolo. Now the Falcons going against Carolina Panthers. The Falcons go in front with a 10-0 lead and 2 fumbles by Jonathan Stewart, the running back for the Carolina Panthers. Then something happens at the end of the first half. Basically, McCaffrey gets his first rushing touchdown of the year, making it 10-7, the rookie out of Clemson. Then the Falcons get the ball back towards the end of the first half, and Matt Ryan does what he's been doing unfortunately well this year, and I do mean unfortunately well, throwing interceptions. He threw yet another one to Mike Adams of the Carolina Panthers secondary, taking it 49 yards, and then eventually leads to the Cam Newton slam dunk to the right side of the goal line, 9-yard rushing touchdown. Eventually, the Falcons end up losing to the Carolina Panthers 20-17. The Buccaneers, as I mentioned, lost in distressing fashion to the New Orleans Saints 30-10. Drew Brees, 33 yards to Alvin Kamara, and then 36-yard pass to Ted Ginn. Kamara even scored on a 6-yard run. This guy had 172 yards from scrimmage. Him and Mark Ingram are a great combination, that run-pass balance that the Saints have going on, as opposed to the Buccaneers with Winston and that AC joint injury he had since the Arizona game. Things have just they've lost 4 straight since that injury, and now he's out for the next 2 weeks. Ryan Fitzpatrick has to come in. Who knows how long it will be, but the New Orleans Saints, the defense is improving. The offense is really crisp. Love it. 30-10. The Eagles of Philadelphia at home defeat the Denver Broncos 51-23. And Jay Ajayi, the newly acquired running back for the Eagles, courtesy of the Miami Dolphins. And in return, the Eagles had to give up a 2018 second-round pick. I think it's a fair trade for both teams. And it's going to be well used by the Dolphins come May or April of 2018. But as for the present moment now, Jay Ajayi bursted out to a 46-yard touchdown run to the left side with the ball over the goal line for his first touchdown of the 2017 season. And at the time, he put Philadelphia up 31-9. The Eagles ended up going on to win the game 51-23. Carson Wentz 4 touchdowns on the day. Corey Clement, the undrafted rookie from Wisconsin, had 3 touchdowns total, 2 on the ground, and 1 rush and 1 receiving. The Eagles are on fire, 7 straight victories going into their bye week, while the Denver Broncos, if it's not one thing, it's just another with this offense. They either cannot keep the ball consistently, or they turn the ball over, they can't run, they're missing several of their receivers. There's trouble brewing in Denver paradise, but the defense is trying all it can, but it can't shoulder the load. Now, the Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans. The Texans' first game without their stalwart rookie Deshaun Watson, who unfortunately last Thursday tore his ACL in a non-contact situation in practice. Well, the Texans had to face the Colts for the first time without Watson, and they brought in Tom Savage. And if that name's familiar to you, he was the quarterback who in week 1 got sacked 6 times in the first half against the Jacksonville Jaguars and had 2 interceptions. That's how memorable he was and hasn't been heard or seen from since that terrible moment. And unfortunately, he had to be the one starting this coming week, and we now wonder why Tom Savage was not the starter for the majority of this year. If you saw at the very end, the Colts were up 20-14, and that was due in part to T.Y. Hilton's $175 yards and 2 big touchdowns, including my favorite, the 80-yard catch he had on the crossing route where he leaped over Kareem Jackson. Nobody even touched T.Y. Hilton. Gets up and goes for the touchdown. But anyway, it's 2014 the game. The Texans are driving down the field with a chance to win the game. On 4th down, Tom Savage holds onto the ball, gets sacked by the Colts defense, and they're able to recover the ball and end the game. Colts win 2014. So for Jacoby Brissett, he looked really well in this game, and the Colts defense looked like the number one passing defense, especially with this guy in town. At one point, it was so bad with Savage, he was 9 of 23 at one point in the second half. That's pitiful numbers. If he's going to be the starter, which I hope he's not again, but if he is, he's got to do a lot better than that. And as for the current quarterback situation, they signed Matt McGloin and TJ Yates after the injury to Deshaun Watson. They let McGloin go, and yet they signed Josh Johnson, who was with the Giants team in the preseason, but then let go before the 2017 season began. Yeah, just off the street, he gets signed, and yet there's a guy with two initials who I'm not going to mention, but he's still out there. I think the Texans should, honestly, at this point, go for it. I think any team should go for it at this point if they got a quarterback void. Now, going into the next game, the Ravens-Titans. What's crazy about this game, it's 16-7 at this point. Eric Weddle gets an interception off of Marcus Mariota. And then all of a sudden, Flacco gets the ball, throws to Javorce Allen on a 3-yard touchdown pass with 8:56 to go, making it 16-13 Titans at the time. The Titans answered directly back to the Ravens with a 75-yard, 9-play drive, concluding with an 11-yard touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota to Eric Decker on the left side. What I liked about this particular play was how the Titans were able to get the Ravens defense to divert to the right side of the field, and on the swing crossing route, were able to get Decker into the end zone. It was Decker's first touchdown of the season, making it 23-13 at the time. Then the Ravens were able to get a touchdown with 46 seconds left to Mike Wallace, making it 23-20 Titans. Then Justin Tucker had the onside kick attempt that didn't travel 10 yards, which is the mandatory yards that it has to travel for an onside kick to be attempted. And the Titans recovered it, and they were able to run out the clock. Titans won 23-20, second consecutive week where they've won by 3 points. This was the first game coming out of the bye, and what was pitiful really about this particular game, yes, they won, the Titans, but what I didn't like was the combined yardage of Derrick Henry, and DeMarco Murray, 45 yards on 13 attempts. They got to do a lot better than that if they're going to really get this team over the edge. They're still leading the AFC South, which is a very murky division. I think between them and Jacksonville, things really could heat up. Now, for you Giant fans, if you got a barf bag, please get it out right now because this will make you want to puke in your soup dish. 51-17, the Giants lose to the Los Angeles Rams. And I'm sorry if I said it like that, but honestly, if I were a Giant fan, and I'm not, but if I were, I would be pretty upset at this pitiful excuse of a game. What was particularly piquant for me was the Giants' defense. It's 3rd and 33, 3rd and long. You have the Rams held back, but then the Giants' secondary gives up an easy screen pass touchdown on a dink pass from Jared Goff to Robert Woods, and the guy goes 52 yards untouched to the end zone. They had a 10-7 lead into a 10-point game. 10-point advantage, the Rams, and they never looked back. And then the other play that really baffled me was the 67-yarder. That's right, Roger DRC did a really bad job covering Sammy Watkins on the only catch that Watkins had on the day for 67 yards. The Rams defeat the Giants 51-17. Jared Goff had a career high of 4 touchdowns, 311 yards. Things are looking great for this Rams team, leading the league with 32.9 points a game. While for the Giants team, this is more the same abysmal offensive performance, and now they're calling to question whether Manning should be the starter going to the rest of the season. I think that's insulting in so many ways to a guy who brought not one but 2 Super Bowl championships to this team in the 21st century in a 4-year period, by the way. That's just, I don't understand the mindset of that. At the same time, they're saying, why not give Davis Webb, the 3rd-round draft pick out of California, a chance to lead the Giants under center? But at the same time, You do not disrespect a man like Manning for the body work he has given to this team. It's not the great year, but at the same time, he has to compensate for the receivers that are unfortunately injured for the year, for an offensive line that can't give him enough time in the pocket, and an abysmal running game that averages barely 85 yards a game. I'm just saying, folks, it's a two-way street. Who you can blame for why the Giants are where they are, and the injuries to major defensive players. There's so much blame to go around, though. McAdoo is at the center of it, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a pink slip before the season's out. Bengals, Jaguars. The Jaguars are the surprise team of the first half of the 2017 season. Who would have thought? Not only did they win, they have this like win-lose type of motif going on the first 7 games. And then all of a sudden now, they have won consecutive games. Yeah, they won Week 7 at home. They won Week 7 on the road. Then they're off Week 8. Then Week 9 they come back, and they beat the Bengals 23-7, and they held the Bengals to under 150 total yards. Wow. To be able to do that is unbelievable. See, Jalen Mickens get a punt for a 63-yard touchdown return. That was incredible right there. And on top of that, seeing Blake Bortles not turn the ball over. That's just something right there, But the part of the game that really got to me was at the end of the first half. A.J. Green, the wide receiver, or Adriel Jeremiah Green, the wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Jalen Ramsey, the second-year player the rookie cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, get into a heated argument that leads to a MMA-style situation. More on A.J. Green's part, where he not only grabs Ramsey's neck, slamming him to the ground, hitting him in the back of the head, and then giving him sort of a MMA-style chokehold. But the one thing that happened in the game was both of them were back and forth, and he got ejected. Rightfully so. But did either one of them get suspended? No. But yet Mike Evans gets suspended. I don't understand how the NFL hands these rules and policies and suspensions down. I don't understand it whatsoever. What, some rules apply to some players and not to others? That makes no sense to me. It doesn't. Either you're going to enforce the rules the same for everybody or don't enforce it all. That's the way I look at things. Maybe I'm in the wrong myself. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. In this instance, I don't think it was right that A.J. Green didn't even get a suspension or a fine for what he did, because that was disturbing to watch. That's unprofessional and uncouth in so many ways. You are an example to kids out there that watch this game. When they see you do things like this, they may think it's all right for them to do it. I'm not saying kids, won't do that. Yeah, I'm not saying that kids will actually automatically do that. Because if they did, that would be pretty bad themselves, and their parents would never allow them to play again. But there's some that might see like, oh, right, hey, he can lose his cool, and that's okay. And then I won't, and nothing will happen to me since he didn't get suspended. I don't know. It really bothered me that nothing happened to A.J. Green or Jalen, but yet Mike Evans from the Buccaneers gets suspended. Well, anyway, I'm going to get off this rant right now. I'll just say this. Jaguars won 23-7. Season's looking great for the Bengals. They're just fighting for survival. Marvin Lewis may not have a job at the end of the year. And now, finally, Monday Night Football. Lions, Packers, Lambeau Field. Brett Hundley trying his best to replace Aaron Rodgers since he broke his collarbone in Minnesota. Second game, he tries to do it at Lambeau, and it's more of the same. He got a 1-yard quarterback sneak with 9:52 left, but it was Matthew Stafford who had a 361-yard performance with 2 touchdowns to Marvin Jones. And, the Lions win 30-17 and snap their losing streak. Unbelievable. And that's the games of Week 9 of the NFL season. Now let's go into some Week 10 action. I can't believe it's Week 10 of the season. We're getting down to the nit and gritty, folks. Now, the teams on the bye this week, Baltimore Ravens, that was a hard loss to have to go into the bye week with. They've had an up and down year. The defense is doing all it can, especially